dots. David is a man who figured out how to open up the eyes and the heart of God. David was a worshiper. Most everything we know about worship came from David. He wrote more than half the Psalms. He understood. And how? I don't know. Because there was no Hillsong. There was no books on worship. In fact, David was a worshiper and learned how to get in God's presence when it was actually illegal. Somebody's saying, what? Yeah, you see, during David's time, God had set up a tabernacle. And this tabernacle was a pattern of like heaven. And what it did is showed a protocol and a pattern of how people could get in the presence of God. And you can read the Reader's Digest version in Hebrews 8, 9, and 10. But essentially it was this. There were priests appointed, and only one priest, once a year, could come into the presence of God. That was the rules. And it was like you entered into the gates, then into the court, and then there was this small area that was called the Holies of Holies. That was the concentrated presence of God, that man could come in to the holy place and be in his presence. And so David somehow violated all the religious tradition, violated and trumped and eclipsed the whole system by learning how to worship. He saw the sea, as it were, dancing, and he decided he would dance. He heard the fullness of the ocean roaring, and he decided that with a voice of triumph, he would lift his voice. He saw the trees clapping their hands, as it were, and he decided he would clap his hands. David was a worshiper, and because of that, God said, worship is the key. It is the key. If you ever learn how to worship, and you are a worshiper, all of you, some of you are like, you know what, I'm not into that like some of these other people. Some of you just kind of stare. I was watching you. I'm coming after you. Some people think, you know, I'm not into that lifting of the hands thing. I'm not into that worship. I don't get it. But let me just say to you, time out. No, that's not true. You are a worshiper. You just have forgotten how to do it. You are a worshiper. You just haven't been practicing it. Can I tell you that God made you a worshiper? Can I tell you that you used to be in the presence of God, and in the presence of God there's nothing but worship going on, and before you were conceived in your mother's womb, God knew you. You were in eternity. You were a worshiper. You just need to be reminded. I love the story of the little boy that snuck into his baby sister's room. She was just 3 days old, and the mother leaned in to say, what is he doing? And he walked over to his baby sister and said, sis, tell me about God. I've almost forgotten. You see, you have already in your spirit been with God, and in eternity you will be with God. This is not you. You are not your flesh and blood. In fact, scientists tell us that every 7 years our cells are replenished. Even while I'm speaking, millions of cells are dying, and other cells are now being restored, so that every 7 years, physically, there's not one part of you that was you 7 years ago. Wow. Now, I got to tell you that the new cells are the old version. And those cells come from dust, and they want to go back to that dust. And I'm 58 years old, and I can just feel it going down. There it goes, there it goes, there it goes. Oh, nope, nope, nope. But this is not you. You are not your 5 senses. That's not you. And you know, we live in a culture that just manipulates us with our 5 senses. see, hear, touch, smell. We are so stimulated, overstimulated. People are trying to sell us food, sell us clothes, sell us cars, sell us deodorant. I mean, brilliant minds are working overtime so that by the time you wake up tomorrow morning, they're coming after you. And they're going to stimulate you, and they're going to get you so connected to try to buy things you don't need, with money you do not have, to impress people you don't even like. And it's just because we're being manipulated by our five senses. But the real you is your spirit. And if you're not careful, you will try to compensate your lack of spiritual connection by overcompensating the other five senses. And as a result of that, you become numb to the things of the Spirit. And you forget, this is who I really am. This is who I was before I was in my mother's womb. This is who I'll be. Can I tell you, when you are worshiping God, you are the best you. When you are worshiping God, you are the most complete you. And if you're not careful, we become numb and number to our spirit man. And today, when the choir was singing and the band was playing, and do you realize what just happened today? We got access to the holies of holies. We got access to something Moses didn't have. We had access to something that only one priest once a year could. Here we are. And when you learn to find your spirit, when you learn to find your voice, when you learn how, and today supernaturally, God is going to put the key of David in your hands, and you're going to learn how to put that into the door. And when you learn how to worship, you're putting a key in the doors. And God, through your key of worship, you will see doors open that you have not ever been able to before. You will see opportunities come to you. If I could just get you to worship, to learn how to stumble and fall and mumble and struggle, to find your spirit voice and find the ability to worship, you've just forgotten. You will open up the heavens over your life. And I'm not talking about worshiping for 3 or 4 hours. Listen to me. I'm putting a key in your hand that if for 3 to 5 to 7 minutes a day, you could find a way to connect with heaven, and heaven and earth collide, and you get in the middle of it, you will have a key